is Charlie Liu. I'm the Dean of the Guanghua School of Management at the Peking University. I'd like to welcome you to today's event. I'm fortunate to be joined by a number of distinguished colleagues from several top schools around the world. Each of our panelists actually have students currently enrolled in Guanghua's Future Leader International Undergraduate Double Degree Program. I will introduce them in a moment. But before I do, I want to briefly talk about today's topic. So everybody knows that business education is largely about whom we teach and what to teach and how to teach. Over the past several months, COVID-19 has affected all of the three dimensions in different ways. We are all forced to make changes. Some changes actually are temporary, some changes could be permanent. But all of those changes have implications for how we educate our students, our youth, and how we prepare them to be global citizens. Last semester, we did everything in our power to effectively cope with global changes so that our program stay afloat. Now that some time have passed, we have gained some experience and are in a position to more intentionally plan on how we would like to involve going forward. So today we have pretty much three topics in three different categories. I think one is about the business models of a business school. The second topic is about the students and the services. And the third part is about the community. If time allows, I may ask some questions about research as well. Without further ado, let me introduce today's guests. There are Andrew Rose, Dean of AUS Business School, Dean Brenda Brower, Dean of Smith School of Business, Queen's University, and Yuk Nevik, Dean of Global BBA Ethics School of Business, Yazik Brokop, Vice Rector for International Relations, SGH Warsaw School of Economics, and Joseph Frank, Dean of Isadeh Business School from Spain, and Mark Smelik, Associate Dean of IE Business School from Spain, and Stefano Caselli, Vice Rector for International Affairs, Bocconi University from Italy, and Thales Andreassi, Deputy Dean from FGF in Brazil. Okay, with that, let's get started. So let me start with Stefano, Vice Rector Caselli. Over the past several months, we have all been forced to change how we operate. And I think many of those changes are likely to persist into the future. How have Bocconi's long-term development plans and operating model have been impacted from the experience gleaned over the past several months? You want to say something about that, Stefano?
Thank you so much for the question. I have to say to sum up that the impact of COVID-19 in a certain sense was nothing and was everything. I have to say was nothing. I perfectly know it seems to be a bit provocative, but it's true because at Bocconi, but in all university and business school, basically the reaction was, let's try to do the same things despite of the big change. Let's try to keep the status quo, because to keep the status quo is a sort of guarantee of quality for all our students, for the employers, for alumni, and for corporates working with our university. But basically, what we have to realize that everything changed because we live in a different landscape. And basically, what we see and what we learn is that COVID-19 was a sort of trigger to accelerate, or to push innovation. We had in mind, they were in the pipeline, and we were in a certain sense a bit risk adverse or reluctant to push the button and to say, let's change everything, not for the sake to change everything, but to improve the quality of what we do. I have to say that the reaction can be divided into short-term, basically, reaction and medium-term reaction. If I have to say short-term, this semester, the reaction in a certain sense is to introduce more and more hybrid and blended, approaches within courses, and basically to have on board both students in class and students staying at home and spread in every part of the world. that is much more interesting what is going to happen in the medium long term, because in the medium long term, basically, we have to reaffirm, some values we consider in a certain sense granted. The lessons is that education is not, yes, a lunch for free, but the concept of education is challenged and we have to do better things we do in the past. For example, international mobility. International mobility today is not granted. It's obvious that we have to push to facilitate, again, a physical mobility. But the lessons we learn is that, in a certain sense, international mobility was a sort of unequal mechanism, because the students, they couldn't join international mobility program, they didn't. So the lesson is we have to introduce, for example, new ways of international mobility and to support more, for example, in terms of tuition waivers, in terms of financial supports our students. And the other aspect is related also to innovation. So it's true that today we are using blended and hybrid model, but we are using these, experiments in a certain sense to improve our teaching model. So what we learn is that to teach a formula in a certain sense is to waste the time of students and professor stay in class. Probably to teach a formula makes sense. I'm going to upload a video very well organized, and probably had to spend more time in class, to do something different. So it's really a boost in terms of innovation in the long, medium term.
Okay. So Joseph, could you share Isade's perspective on that?
Yes.
Dean Frank? Okay.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. Well, I guess that we were all caught by surprise with this pandemic. I still remember I was at the end of January in Washington, D.C. in a conference. And when we were going back to the hotel, the Chinese colleagues told us, go to the hotel because we are going to go to a pharmacy to buy masks because there are no masks in China. And we thought, well, I mean, this is, something that it's an exaggeration, probably. It's an overreaction. But, 1 month and a half, 1 week later, they were, locked down. And only 1 month and 1 week later, we all were locked down. I believe that COVID-19 has accelerated something that we had already planned. I mean, in our strategic plan, we had anticipated that we wanted to move to a hybrid model and to a blended model for 30% of the time of the program. And this was a strategic plan we had in like 3-4 years. And we had to do that literally overnight. I mean, all business schools were what I define as a swim or sink situation. We had to jump and we had to move everything online. And last term was a term where, we did what we could. And in our case, we had to transition more than 4,000 students in less than 48 hours to the online environment. But of course, that was an emergency solution. And what we are working now is in a different type of model. So what I asked all the faculty members this last summer was to do a reset and try to rethink the way we approach and the way we deliver content to the students. Some changes are here to stay. Actually, in fact, all the technologies that we are using today were technologies that were already there. I mean, we have not invented something radically new with the pandemic. We are using tools that we had and that we were not using, not taking full advantage of them. And we have mastered those tools, in a very short period of time. So I guess that we are going to continue combining these things. Still, a lot of students, I think international mobility, as Stefano was saying, is extremely important because we can, of course, deliver courses online. Of course, we can do projects online, but there is no substitute so far for the experience of going to another country, to another culture, of living, of interacting with people, and everything that you do outside of the classroom is something that it's hard to replicate in the online environment. But the reality is that COVID-19 is changing everything. It's changing the way people work. It's changing the way people interact. We are developing today competencies in our students that we originally did not have in our curriculum. And this is also forced due to the new environment and to the new situation. So some of these changes will remain. It will remain, of course, the technology part. It will remain the way of interacting, the probably not wasting so much time traveling for things that can be fixed in an online environment. You can be more effective. I mean, next week I will be attending 2 conferences, one in Shanghai and one in Mexico on the same day, and I will be speaking in both. That was impossible before, but thanks to this new environment, this will be possible. So at the end of the day, it's facilitating our day life, also placing new challenges, but it's a new environment, and we will not go back to what we had before. Forget about that. The new normality, I don't know what is it going to be, but forget about what we have pre-COVID, because those times are not going to come back.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you both. We may come back to this point later. On a related note, Andrew, what new initiatives and changes have you implemented at NUS that have received positive feedback from the students, and what areas, based on the results, student feedback, do you need to continue to refine? Can you elaborate a bit on that?
So,
Andrew, okay.
So in my view, the only thing that's deep and structural that I can understand associated with the pandemic is an increase in the demand for post-tertiary business education. I think the demand for master's degrees was rising before, and it has dramatically risen as a result of the pandemic. So we were planning to respond to that already, and this has just continued and accelerated. The defining feature for me is that NUS is in Singapore. Now, Singapore has some downsides. It's a relatively authoritarian, top-down sort of society. And we got to take advantage of that because students, for instance, never saw their student feedback surveys at the end of each semester. So they taught, they filled out these surveys, nothing happened as a result. We got to vote as a faculty to commit, to make the very first teaching commitment to our students ever as a result of the pandemic, to commit to at least minimal effective teaching standards, and to make that commitment credible by distributing information to the students. That wouldn't have been possible without the pandemic. And we took advantage of that, and that will help us in the future with dealing with master student. But because Singapore is authoritarian and a relatively top-down place, it's also been very effective at dealing with the pandemic. So we've been able to go to technically a hybrid model, but essentially 100% of our teaching is face-to-face. It's simultaneously online, so it is technically hybrid, but basically we're running our classes, especially for all of our master's students, in person. We think that the online stuff is a pain, and we hear complaints from many institutions about students who are taught online and don't like the quality, and I certainly understand that. And so we're committed to making our hybrid model primarily face-to-face and much more effective than the online. So I guess I'm going to disagree with what I've heard so far. I think the post-pandemic world is going to look like the pre-pandemic plus a vaccine. So I'll leave you at that point.
Okay, so let's say there's a question for Dean Levick, because there's a different environment, France. So Dean Levick, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us? You know, what happened at ESSEC, and how you guys deal with a pandemic? Dean Levick?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me to this roundtable. Very interesting. Well, yes, France had a very different strategy, even though it's very difficult to know what the strategy is actually. But the reality is that I mean, I agree with pretty much everything that has been said. I mean, I don't think the post-pandemic world is going to be that much different. But there are new things that we can do now that we couldn't do before, and that will stay, I think. In terms of experiences, for example, you probably know we have a campus in Africa located in Morocco, and we run a summer program there for their master students. And this year we couldn't really welcome them on campus because of the situation, so we ran the whole thing online. Part of this program, usually when it's face-to-face, students go for 1 week. There's a study week in one African country. We're supposed to be in Senegal this year. We couldn't do that. Instead, what we did is we put together a virtual Africa tour. So instead of going to one country and spending 1 week there and just being in one country, because we cannot really do more than that in the physical world, they got a chance to visit 5 different countries during the course of the summer, meet people, entrepreneurs, people, musicians, people from industry in the countries, and basically discover 5 different African countries during the summer, something that again would have been possible in the physical world. And that's something that we certainly will keep. It was very much liked by the students. They really appreciated the opportunity to do that. And it is not going to replace all the things, but it will add to what we already have. So that's just one experience of things that we can do. I mean, again, also, I think both the students and everyone has discovered that we can do things from distance. I mean, as Joseph was saying, you can. I mean, I do that. I mean, I spend my day, I jet set during the day. I mean, I spend like the morning in Beirut, and the afternoon I'm in Singapore, and then I go to Morocco. All that in the course of 1 day. I mean, just back-to-back meetings in different countries. So there are things that we didn't do before for a number of reasons that we do now, and I believe these are here to stay, and people like it. I mean, it's not like we do it because we cannot do otherwise. We do it because it adds value to the whole process. And again, some of the kids like, and many of the kids like some of the aspects that are online, dislike a number of other aspects. I mean, for example, they don't like to do group works online. They'd rather be together and see each other. But they appreciate the fact that they can take courses online, like top-down course. So there are good things, bad things. It's just for us to look at what we want to keep, capitalize on the good things. But I do agree, though, that the post, I mean, once we have the vaccine and can deal with that pandemic, face-to-face is going to be the way we go, and that's what the students are asking for.
So despite the fact that we have virtual tours, you know, people benefit from that, you guys still believe that face-to-face is not replaceable, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, what I'm saying is, because really what we've discovered is the new ways to do things that will add more value to what we offer, but will not replace what we used to have. I mean, not fully replace, at least, maybe some parts. I mean, a quick example, I believe, for example, we're doing too many hours of face-to-face courses in our program. the digital world is a way to change the pedagogy, move a little bit more online, free time for the students to do other types of works. And that was mentioned before by one of my colleagues here. But some things will change, but again, I mean, I think being close together, meeting people, the physical world is very important for students, for our professors also, and for us.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, so the integration of online education into our business models is very interesting. I think in the sense that it has created new opportunities on the one hand, on the other hand, it also creates competition from private sectors. So actually, I don't know, this is probably a question for Brenda. Do you see the wide availability of the online education contents as a threat or opportunity? What steps is Queen's taking to proactively adopt digital technologies? Brenda?
Yes, thank you, and great to be here. Whether it's a threat or opportunity of wide availability of online education content is really, you know, two sides of the same coin. I'm certainly of the mind that opportunity requires intention, drive, and if it's aligned with your mission and resources, go for it. In order to be competitive in an online arena, it helps to be able to define what's your niche, and then you work to own it. So we've all increased our digital assets considerably, given the full-scale transition to remote delivery. And that's for all academic activities, you know, curriculum, symposia, professional development, career services. So it makes some sense to leverage that, given the investment of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears that we see. How can we use these things in future? Not necessarily as a replacement, but as an added value. And it also makes sense in my mind to leverage online learning platforms. You know, we were recently reminded by a colleague that it's common practice to use textbooks or articles to support our teaching and learning, which are often written by experts affiliated with other institutions. So why not think about partnering with a MOOC provider, you know, edX, Coursera, what have you, to deliver specific modules or foundational content to support our virtual programs and allow us to then focus our energies and resources on developing distinctive custom programs, micro-credentials, professional certificates, executive education, you know, the likes that will amplify the expertise and the thought leadership of our faculty and reflect the school's strengths. So it's not creating something new, it's building on what we have and exploring new markets. The scope and scale of the opportunities presented lies very much in building versatility into your planning so that core content can be used across programs. It can be repurposed for different audiences, and we're working towards also different stages of learning. You know, for example, you can bookend it with more advanced material or an application. And if it has nimbleness, you afford a multitude, a repository of programming opportunities that you can bring in, take out as needed, and as the market demands. And you know, the market's growing. Incentives like digital badging have been really effective in promoting engagement in online learning to support things like career development and advancement. And yes, there's competition out there with private business and such, but universities still offer that capacity to incorporate the research at a level and the application at a level that isn't always available and at the same scale through business. Now, at Smith, we've expanded our virtual conferencing and digital learning tools. And in the last year, fortunately, a few months prior to the hit of COVID, we launched a center that was dedicated to digital content development. And we benefit from enterprise-wide initiatives in digital technologies. The pandemic, and it's been said before, accelerated acceptance of online learning, and the circumstances requiring such a really fast, rapid transition meant that collaborations and partnerships were essential coping mechanisms and actually strategy. So we see it as a catalyst for a global scale to rethink education how we can deliver it in addition to going with, we're not excluding our face-to-face. I think we all have a great love for that form of education, but it has created possibilities that can be realized, and partnerships are going to be an essential element of that.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. May I interpret in this way, the competition from private sector may have a larger impact on undergraduate program, but for really elite executive programs, probably traditional business school professors still have some advantages. I don't know whether this is something you also have in mind. Agree or disagree? Yeah.
I think I would disagree. I mean, I think,
okay, cool.
I think where we're seeing competition is very much on the exec ed professional development side of things, and micro credentials. I mean, the boundaries, what we used to think, well, it's only a university that can deliver these kinds of programs. Those boundaries are becoming increasingly porous. So I think we have to be mindful of it. We know it's going to happen. We're not going to prevent it. Doesn't matter what we think. But what we can do is we can exploit it, and we can work and develop partnerships that actually see that we're meeting the needs and demands of private sector, but also supporting and allowing us to expand and build our own programming and our resources accordingly.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. So Mark, I knew that the IE Business School has been leveraging online technology for quite a long time. What is your perspective on that?
Yeah, thank you, Dean Yu, for the chance to speak here and to meet colleagues from across the world. The question was, is it an opportunity or a threat? And for us, it's 100% opportunity. Even though there are some elements of threat, threats in terms of pricing or competition, but that really is an opportunity. And I completely echo what Brenda said about the importance of strategy. So the impact on the business model, I guess, is greatest if you haven't got a clear strategy. So if you have a clear strategy as a school and a sense of purpose in our industry, what do we do well, and for who do we do it well, and what else should we do in the future, and what don't we want to do as a school? If you have a clear strategy, you can cope with these disruptions, and you can leverage it, and then it becomes 100% opportunity, in my view. And the online education business will increase, and the platforms and content, will be commoditized over the next few years, and commoditization of learning content as well as the platforms, may have some consequences for us as business schools. I mean, it certainly can have a pressure on pricing. If you look at the Power MBA or online opportunities in the different online provisions and the pricing that is attached to that, it's a very different type of model than what we've been able to hang on to for a very long time. So I think the commodity aspect could kill your business model if you don't innovate and you don't have a good understanding of what your own pricing is made up of, which is the brand and the content that you have and the networks that you give. And from that perspective, the hybrid model for all of us will be the same challenge, but it also will be the same opportunity. And that face-to-face will continue to be an important aspect of the way that we provision our education. And for IE, it has not been in concept or in strategy a major shock. We started one of the first online MBA programs. It's still one of the global leaders in online. We worked with the FT on developing executive education through Headspring, through the virtual learning journeys and 100% customized programs. And the natural progress for us was to have a concept which we call liquid learning. Many other people have different names for it, but we call it our liquid learning methodology for our programs right across the board, not just at undergraduate level, but also at master's and MBA. And a lot of those are dependent on collaborations. And that's what Brenda also emphasized, and I would emphasize, is that we're not doing these things alone. We're increasingly going to have to leverage both the private and public sector collaborations that are on offer for us. And so we're working with Incendi, and we're working with Minerva, and with many other different places like the FT, to actually create the content and the methodologies that will help us to answer what is. I do think that there will be a new model. I don't think we're going to go back to the old model completely. I think that we have to change. If you talk to companies, they want us to change. If you talk to students, they want us to be far more flexible and to have much more choice than they've had in the past. But the face-to-face will still be very, very important, and we're completely wedded to the combination of that.
Okay, thanks, Mark, for that. Actually, in addition to the pricing issue you mentioned, are there any other aspects you dislike about online education, or maybe you think some aspects we can refine, we can improve going forward?
Yeah, the opportunity for us and for me personally, also as the dean of the undergraduate programs, is that we actually it allows us to reach markets that were difficult for us to reach in the past, in a way. And so, we have a very diverse student body with more than 100 nationalities, but we are not a global business school in the sense that we have campuses across the world. We have a campus in Segovia and a campus in Madrid, and that's it. And so for us, this is an opportunity to touch on different market segments and to build our brand and and to let people know about what we do in the education sphere in a way that probably we weren't quite able to do in the past.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so it's a time for us to move to students and services we offer to our students. So we all know that 2020 has been a truly turbulent year on many different levels. And we have to ensure that our students are equipped with new skills to be successful in the post-pandemic world. So I have a question for Thales and Jesse. So which specific new skills have you identified as important? And what steps has FGV taken to equip students with these skills through its curriculum? Can you say something about that?
Okay. Thank you very much, Jin Liu, for your invitation to take part of this panel. It's really an honor to be here. In relation to the question, most courses offered by the FGV, of course, have included topics about the impact of pandemic in the syllabus. However, one of our courses entitled Happiness has a special dimension at this moment. This course discusses topics as happiness, unhappiness, death and life under the psychology and philosophy context, theories and paradigms. Of course, the students will enjoy it. In addition, FGV hired a startup company named TNH that indicates through some questions and an app if the students have symptoms of stress, anxiety, or depression. Of course, this app does not replace doctors or psychologists, but indicates to students if they should see a professional specialized in these diseases. Well, I teach entrepreneurship, and in entrepreneurship, we have a very strong image that guides entrepreneurs. Turn lemons into lemonade. Turn something bad into something positive. I think that we have to learn how to turn all the problems caused by this terrible pandemic in learning, improve our digital ability, improve our course methodologies, improve our capacity of collaboration, improve our ability to establish partnership and so on. I personally believe that we will be better human beings after this pandemic, and I try to transmit it to our students and our colleagues.
Okay, yeah, so Dean Leverk, can you share us what ESSEC is doing on those fronts, equipping students with specific skills?
Yeah, it's
Dean Leverk?
Well,
yeah,
thank you.
please.
Thank you for the question. It's actually a very, very interesting question because I must confess that we've not really thought about it along those lines yet. We've been mostly reactive to the situation, trying to anticipate and adjust to allow students to maintain a reasonably high quality of education in these circumstances. And we've not really looked into that aspect of things, that is, you know, what new skills do we need to emphasize and develop with the students. So I think the question is a bit too early for us, but I must confess again that we didn't really asked that question before, so I think it's a very, very interesting question. I think that we need to wait a little bit to see how things settle down a little bit, and how everyone has lived through that situation, to get a better idea of what it means in terms of skills and competencies that we need to emphasize and teach our kids. I think it's still too new to rush into different things. Right now, I think it's wise to observe, try to stay close to our students to make sure that they go through that process as well as possible, and again, question their, you know, assistance by a psychologist, talking to them, talking to the professors also is very important. But in terms of real skills that we've implemented in the curriculum at this point, nothing. But certainly we're looking into this, and again probably think about that question a little bit more in the future. But thinking about it, I think it's we need to wait a little bit before we need to sort through all the things that happen before we look into what can be translated into the curriculum and the education program that we offer our students.
Thanks. Indeed, changing curriculum is a big thing, so we better observe to ensure that we're really seeing something that is going on. Thanks for that.
Yeah. We need the right professors and the right skills to teach them those
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I know that all of our panelists here today actually are very committed to recruiting international students to make our student community much more vibrant and diverse. So Vice Rector Yazik Prokop, I want you to probably say something about how SGH has done to overcome the difficulty brought by limited international mobility, challenges, because of the pandemic, and how you guys recruit, international students right now, and how you address the challenges. You want to say something about that? Or you have any experience?
Yes, thank you very much, Dean Liu, for inviting me to this really interesting panel. I would start really with saying something which we all know, that at the beginning of the pandemics in March, we thought it will last maybe a couple of months. So then by the end of the spring, we thought, yes, we will be open for the summer. So we will be ready for the next year, academic year, well prepared to open up all our activities as usual. But situation has dramatically changed. We are now living in a situation where we are really uncertain about how long it will last. So that is why, to some extent, our initial activities towards recruitments were maybe kind of slowed down. We were waiting for the better times. But finally, once we realized that the problem will last a little bit longer than we expected, then we started clearly facing all the challenges which all of us, I believe, faced. So first of all, we have, as a result, we definitely already observed that international student enrollment has significantly decreased in all places, definitely in our school. Travel restrictions, especially travel restrictions, made it very difficult for us to establish personal face-to-face contact with potential students. We couldn't really go to regular recruitment fairs. We couldn't visit even locally. We had trouble to go to high schools to promote our programs. So it was not only internationally, but even locally. It was a little bit hard to go through the regular recruitment. So definitely we all need somewhat new, more creative ways to approach, especially international students. So what were the most popular or quickly implemented things? Something which we have already prepared in the past. We already had some videos about our schools, but we had to improve them clearly to be better prepared. Also, we made an effort to improve the virtual walking tours of our university. And we made also some digital presentation of Warsaw, of the capital, and also Poland to attract others. Of course, some of that material, some of that digital material was available, but definitely it had to be substantially improved and much more used than in the past. Social media communication became really a key. So we had really improved and supported our media office in the school. We have strengthened it to really be very active on the Facebook of the school, TikTok, Instagram, and all possible ways to communicate with the students. So virtual recruitment fairs. We tried to join some of those virtual recruitment fairs. But this is still kind of new venture. So what I hope now, since this is all a challenge for all universities, I think we have to think about creation of more and more efficient virtual recruitment fairs for all universities. So I think cooperation with partner schools, with all our friends in various countries would be very helpful to really make it much more efficient. Also, follow-up communication. Communication was really a key because most of us were really locked down, sometimes in the houses, sometimes in some offices. So it was important to make phone calls, make all kinds of online communication, emails, present video messages from university president, from university officials to various audiences. So among other difficulties, which I would also mention here, we faced some problems with formalities. Locally, it was not maybe so much difficult, but also it was also an issue for local students, basically to deliver original documents for the recruitment. So checking up originality of documents and making them really approved by various authorities was a little bit difficult. So sometimes maybe we took some risk of admitting students who may not be eligible. But taking into account really a large decline of the enrollment, we thought to take this risk, and maybe during the first semester, during the first year of education, we will go back and check all the documentation when we have more time. Also, internet connection. In Poland, internet is very fast, but we have neighbor countries, Ukraine, Belarus, which those are the countries which experience more problems. They have less affluent students. So, but these are the biggest customers for us. Actually, Warsaw School of Economics has the biggest number, actually the biggest nationality group are Belarusians and Ukrainians. So over the last few years. So this was sometimes a challenge to get internet connection there. So the quality was always so good. But anyhow, we have somehow managed to do it. But this is something which I wanted to really raise, that for some countries which are less economically developed, it could be much more difficult to get communication online. So what other, you also ask about some advice to the students who look for more international component in education. So here, definitely, I would still encourage students to visit other schools, students from other countries to study abroad. Maybe just to give you some numbers, per each semester we usually were getting 200 to 300 visiting students. This year we get maybe a little bit more than half of that. So for example, we still have 150 students signed up for the coming semester to visit Warsaw, to visit our school. So what will be the deal? Our school is locked down in that sense that we will be delivering really almost 100% of all the classes online this semester. There will be few exemptions. Maybe some classes in the MBA program, some maybe classes in some programs will meet face-to-face, depending on the number of students. So what will happen to the students who would come to visit Warsaw and Poland? So basically, they will have an option, maybe occasionally, maybe to speak face-to-face to some professors, but mostly they will be sitting in the dormitory, or they will be sitting in the apartment and participating in classes online. But this will be only part of the experience, because they will have an opportunity to go to the city, to go around, to talk to people here, local people, to mix with the culture, so to learn the Polish culture. They will be having opportunity to visit Polish cities. So because all Poland is here, is relatively easy to communicate. I was just a couple of days ago, I came back from the Polish Baltic Sea. So it was regular, nice trip. Of course, on the train, you have to keep your mask on, or if you are on the plane, you have to keep your mask on. But of course, it is possible. So I would still encourage the students to do it. So I'm getting a message from Jared here. So I will be stopping at this time, and then maybe come back to some of the points.
Thanks, but it's good you can travel even though with a mask. Yeah, it's good. Okay, so how about Isate, Joseph? Do you have something to say about how you guys now overcome the international mobility issue?
Yeah,
international students. Yeah.
Let me start by sharing with you a comment I had from my career service director. In the middle of the pandemic, when we were locked down, she told me, even though we are locked down, we are closer than ever to the companies, and we are closer than ever to the students. And actually, the number of mentoring and coaching sessions of career service increased a lot. And the same for all the office hours of faculty members attending individual consultation of students. My obsession during the pandemic was, I do not want the COVID generation, and probably I should say the first COVID generation, because we are going to have more than one. I don't want the COVID generation to be remembered as the less prepared generations. So we put extra efforts in adding value, in doing more contents. We launch a series of talks we call Stay Connected for students, for alumni. We try to get engaged. We offer them extra courses. We offer them the flexibility that once the campus is now open, they can come back, even though they have finished, to do some electives to complement their education. We are launching new topics on crisis management, on different issues. So, I mean, there was an effort of adding value to the students. And then there was another major thing, which was allow for maximum flexibility and adaptability, so everyone can, complete their degrees. Of course, this requires extra hours from our staff and from our faculty members. if you have to work with a hybrid people online and people face to face, that means that professors have to adapt their teaching, they have to adapt their assessment, they have to put extra hours, and they do that, very happily, because they understand that you know, an extraordinary situation. The problem can be if this, you know, is kept for a long time. You can do an extraordinary effort once, but you cannot maintain extraordinary efforts. I mean, you put too much tension on people. In terms of recruitment, I mean, we are living the opposite situation from our colleagues in Warsaw. This year for us has been record numbers in international students for our MSc programs. We had an extraordinary demand that we assume it's because people do not see a lot of employment opportunities and they decide to continue their studies with an MSc, but the fact is that we have increased by 40% the applications and by more than 20% the registration of international students. And of course, we have to have maximum flexibility. And what we have done is also increase a lot the virtual contact with the applicants, with all the candidates, more virtual visits, more one-to-one interaction. I mean, all our admissions team was, you know, pushing a lot the interaction with every single candidate to monitor, to follow up the candidates. And in terms of international mobility, of course, I believe that there will be restrictions, but still we have our campus open. We are starting, we have started with bachelor students for the second, third, and fourth year a couple of weeks ago. But all students, all the incoming new students will start in the first week of October. And we have our campus ready. And we anticipate there will be mobility restrictions. So we have designed a first term that can be completely done online if the students have visa problems or mobility problems or travel restrictions. And we are adapting as much as we can all the different possible formats, so they can start online if they cannot travel. But once they can move, the campus will be ready for them.
Okay, thank you, Joseph, for that. Actually, I have a related question here. One of the greatest benefits, of course, for international education is that it creates new connections to new people and new places. And indeed, this is the primary purpose of the Future Leader program, for which you guys all have offered invaluable support. This question maybe for Mark. Yeah, Mark, with limited international mobility and other limitations we are still facing, how do we help students create new connections to new people and unfamiliar places? Can you give us some examples of what IE is doing on that front?
Yeah, and I think this will change from institution to institution, because we all should have some somewhat unique characteristics of both our student body and the way that we internationalize, and have a strategy for that. Yeah, for sure, the Future Leaders program, I'm delighted that it actually was able to continue, and that we have our students now in Beijing. I mean, that's one of the exceptions in the processes that we've seen over the last 6 months. And we had to cancel our international mobility program for this semester because it was incredibly hard to manage this with so many, more than 150 partners. And we are discussing with all those partners, like all the other schools as well, how we can find solutions for the second semester for the undergraduates, and what we're going to do in 2021, because we're going to have a wave of extra mobility requests, because we have students pent up to want to go abroad who couldn't go. I think the exchange limitations will be temporary. We'll be back to normal within the next 2 years, but it also pushes us to think about other solutions of international mobility and options that have already been mentioned by Hugh and others. That, you know, I think we need to look at more flexibility in terms of shorter periods that students can connect with both companies in internships and visits, but also in terms of summer programs and very distinct collaborations between different schools. We've had a number of different proposals that we're working on with schools in different parts of the world on how our students can collaborate, partly online, partly face-to-face, but in a different type of mode, whether it's in the summer, whether it's for a shorter period of time. But I think it depends a little bit as well on what your cohort is like. And our cohort is highly international, with more than 100 nationalities coming to Spain. And we wanted to make sure that we first focused on getting that group of people together as far as we can. And so we have a significant number of students now on campus. They are studying completely flexibly, so they can choose, you know, according to their circumstances, whether they're going to come into college or not. But they're all working in international groups, you know, whether they're face-to-face or online. And all the classes happen, you know, accommodated to different time zones. And because we have so many different students, we can try and match the different time zones, the different nationality groupings, and the different subjects year by year, group by group. That's been an enormous job. And logistically, I don't think I want to do that again next year in the same way, but we
hopefully,
you know, we're certainly learning from the way that that this flexibility actually pushes us to think more broadly about what it means to be connected. And so we also have the dual degrees that we will continue to work on. I mean, these are great opportunities. But you know, one of the biggest challenges, I think, for all of us will be our connections with corporates and how we can get internships, you know, continue in a way that is both meaningful for the company as well as for the students. We've had online internships. My own experience is mixed on that. I think people still want to be and want to experience groups in the office, want to have office culture, want to have business environment in which they can connect. So we are working very hard though with employers to have that flexibility and to push, but it will come back to a more normal situation once, you know, we have better mobility.
Yeah, online internship. Yeah, I wonder how it works. Yeah. Okay. So Andrew, is there anything you'd like to add on what NUS has been doing on that front?
So I agree with almost everything that Mark said, but let me try to make it in a slightly different way. International mobility would be terrific, but it's really, really hard to imagine it coming back for most of our students anytime soon. In the absence of international mobility, mobility is the important thing, and getting the students together face to face is very important. And the most effective way of doing that is to get them into the classroom face to face, if you're allowed to do that, because, you know, a lot of the learning doesn't take place in the classroom. It's from them interacting with each other. And the face-to-face interactions are far more intense and high quality than the online interactions between the students. So I guess my view is the best thing that we can do is to try and get the students together in person insofar as we reasonably can, and keep them safe. I also want us to all recognize that when it comes to business education, the learning that they get in the classroom is, as far as I'm concerned, a distant third in terms of their objectives. Typically, the most important thing that they want is the degree, which signals their quality and their ability to get into the business school and to get through the program. The second one is the network, and their network is, of course, much stronger if they've met people face to face. A distant third, as far as I'm concerned, is anything that they learn in the classroom. So the best thing that I think that we can do with our students to facilitate their experience, given the constraints that we have, is simply get them together face to face if we can reasonably do it safely. And if we do that in the classroom, they'll learn from each other a lot outside the classroom, which is what we're really after.
Thanks, Andrew. Has allowed universities to reach much larger and more diverse audience than used to. So this is a question for Brenda. How has Queen's sought to capitalize on this to engage with the people you may not otherwise have contact with, and how you benefit from that? Does that have any implications for the research and the education contents as well? Brenda, can you say something about that?
Sure, thanks for that. There's no doubt that online events have enabled greater participation and diversity. We have a Business Insight webinar series and showcases faculty research and thought leadership. And it's shown like a 30-fold increase in participation from across the globe. And these online events effectively, they shrink our world and expand our reach, which amplifies impact and the influence of the work we do. And it has huge reputational values, I think we all appreciate, but also on the human side, it's about getting to know people and institutions and learn from their experiences. And such diversity at a single event is absolutely extraordinary, and no jet lag. And so, without travel, without the costs of it, it's easier to bring together world leaders and experts for exceptional discussion, and that sparks ideas and innovation and such that go far beyond the event. You get to meet people who otherwise you wouldn't have met, talking across oceans, date lines, disciplines. It's about access. Now, there have been what we would say unexpected benefits, one being the effectiveness in connecting with communities and creating networks. As an example, Smith wanted to assist businesses, organizations, and the community in light of the pandemic by offering our expertise. Hosted an online community event, conducted real-time polling to find out what the key issues and challenges were, engaged in discussion and ranking them again real-time, putting, what's the risk of these things. And in one single event, by the end of it, we had created a support network that was relevant, responsive to their needs, and has translated into internships for students, research projects, and all kinds of collaborative ventures within the city. And another pleasant surprise is on the social engagement side, using the advanced features, because it's not just, sit in front of a camera any longer, but virtual platforms that enhance participant experiences and allow participants to move seamlessly from one room to another. So we hosted a social for about 1,000 graduates, alumni, benefactors, main stage of live music, 14 plus theme rooms for small gathering. And it was a celebration of the year's achievements and successes. It was fun. It brought people together from all over the world. And best of all, that kind of platform went beyond diversity. It was inclusive. And it really reminded people that, yes, we are a community. So I think of the happiness course that was mentioned earlier. This was happiness in an evening event.
Okay, indeed, a lot of pleasant surprises. Okay, let's go back to Vice Rector Jacek Prokop. How has SGH been able to increase awareness of its research and academic programs? Can you say something about that?
Yes, I would share a lot of experiences which Brenda mentioned. So, but to add a little bit more to it, clearly limited personal interaction was a hurdle. But we also expanded the audience in many of the events, in many of the webinars. So experts who normally do not travel internationally or have no time to travel, or either maybe we had some issues with parents who had to stay with the kids, or were really engaged in some local work which they couldn't really leave. So those people were able to join. Those really people were able to join us and participate in many of the activities. Also, I would say that seminars and all kinds of webinars attracted many people. But when we speak about lectures, so in lectures also we observed much greater participation of the students during online classes. But the only problem, we are not sure about the real engagement of those students. Because online, it is not possible to allow everybody to speak. It's a little bit different in the classroom, where you can see faces all the time and you can see the reactions more directly. So definitely the numbers have increased. We are not sure about the actual quality of that engagement. So like I mentioned already, we had many webinars, we have many online seminars, and discussions with all kinds of experts, and sometimes really world-class experts, which normally would not have time to come to Warsaw to give a talk, but we were able to attract them over the internet. And also our experts, Polish experts from our school, were able to participate in many events in various parts of the world. Some complications which arise when we had to really consider our time slightly differently, because now being in virtual meetings, we sometimes didn't consider situations that actually some virtual meetings overlap. So I found myself sometimes having an iPhone, a smartphone, and computer open and participating in a couple of events almost at the same time, trying to follow up to those events. Maybe one more point before I finish. So Brenda mentioned about social engagement. So I would also like to mention one social interesting engagement. Namely, as you know, students, or especially grade school students and high school students had to really spend time at home and study online. So it was some difficulty, especially for children of personnel of hospitals. So, one local hospital that is located near our school is quite a large hospital. So our students and our faculty offered help to the children of the hospital personnel, because they couldn't spend time with the children at home caring for the infected patients. So almost 200 our students volunteered to really help them in getting education at the right pace. So this is also something which helped us to get much more engaged socially, even during this difficult time. So thank you.
Thanks, Jacek, for that. Okay, so let's talk about communities and social engagement. We know that the pandemic has a profound impact on our communities, and university has always been very important contributors to the society, to the communities in which we operate. So I want to give the question to Talis. So over the past few months, how has FGV supported its communities, and how you guys plan to continue doing so going forward? Talis?
Okay. We have 18 applied research centers at FGV Business School. For instance, Entrepreneurship Center, Sustainability Center, Microfinance, and so on, 18 centers. Well, the mission of the centers is to develop projects to promote impact on society in their respective areas. In the pandemic, of course, some of the centers developed several projects, and we're going to talk about some of them. For example, the Center of Logistics found free transportation for donated food to poor areas in São Paulo state. The Center of Health Management organized several free webinars to help people take care of themselves in the pandemic. The retail center promoted its in social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc., job opportunities offered by retail stores. As you should imagine, unemployment rates in Brazil was very high in the beginning of the pandemic, and of course it still is. Finally, the Public Management and Citizenship Center intermediated the donation of $100,000 from a private equity fund to underserved region in São Paulo state. This money was expanded to buy food for 5,000 families. In addition, this center also offered training in online education for teachers of a public elementary school in a poor region of the city. This is really a challenge in Brazil, especially in Brazilian poor areas, since most teachers have low digital expertise. And of course, the work of the center was very important to improve the classes of those teachers.
Okay, thanks, Dennis, for that. Actually, in the time of pandemic and also in the post-pandemic period, business school need to make new contributions to the communities. So I want to open the question up to all of the panelists. In your understanding, how business school can better service the community going forward in the wake of pandemic? So if anyone want to have some remarks on this? Please go ahead. Any thoughts on this?
I'm happy to say something if.
Yeah, Mark. Yeah, please. Yeah, you save me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm just.
Please.
Yeah, I think community is defined by many different things, and stakeholders in what we try to do as business schools and universities need to be connected, particularly in times of crisis, and they have the power for us to have an impact on our societies. And at IE, we've done this in Spain in particular through collaboration on scholarships with Banco Santander, and on helping small micro businesses on their business plans and their sales process with collaboration with Amazon. And of course, it's a win-win situation because they also want to stay connected with the business and local community. So, but there are many different ways that we can keep connecting, collaborating in a time of crisis, and it's difficult to find the time and commitment sometimes but it's exactly now it's important to do this kind of stuff to show that you are having a real meaning for the community, and that's in your region, but also internationally, of course. And the other part is that I think I see one of my roles also to help our students to see what their role is and how they're going to be future leaders, which is the program that you've called, but it's actually a very important concept that we're working on very hard in education. And let's be frank, the young guys want to have a good time. They want to have face-to-face time, and they want to have parties, and they want to have a good time when they're at university. But they also have a very important responsibility towards society and the community in which they are guests when they come to our university. And this is a very open and constant debate that we have, which is, about responsibility, about behaviors, about understanding, the role in society as individuals, and also how, we act as leaders and what we should be thinking about and listening to in those different circumstances. For me, that's a very practical contribution to what we mean by being responsible in our communities.
Okay, thanks, Mark, for that. Okay, I think that marks the end of the dialogue portion of this event. We still have 15 minutes left, so let's see whether the audience like to ask some questions, for our panelists. Do we see any questions? Let me check. So here I do find a couple questions from the audience. So one of the questions is that are we going to change the credit system? Because right now the online courses are just like watching video. I don't know. Do you guys have any experience? You are thinking about changing your credit system because of the online components in this very specific time? So
no, we are
not
not going to change. We are going to keep the same credits online or face-to-face. We are not going to change.
We're going to do the same thing at Singapore. We're not going to dilute the degree at all.
Yeah, same as Queen. We're not going down that road.
Okay, this is good. Yeah, so this is very clear answer to the question. Yeah, and also in the very beginning, I talk about the possibility that if we have time, we can discuss the research a little bit. Because the pandemic itself definitely influenced people's view about globalization, about science, about a lot of issues. So are we seeing any change in the theme, in the topics of research due to the pandemic in your own institution? So anyone wants to say something about that? In terms of research topics, the same focus.
So something we did at the SADE is that we postponed the research, the tenure clock 1 year to all people, all faculty members who are in tenure track. We give them 1 extra year because we understood that this is a year where they cannot attend conferences, where they can present their papers and get feedbacks. So in the process of getting their publications, in order to get tenure, we decided to help faculty also because we are asking faculty this extra effort in terms of teaching. So one way to compensate is, for all faculty members who are in tenure track, we have postponed all the tenure, deadlines 1 year. This is what we have done.
Thanks, Joseph, for that. So any change in research from other institutions?
Yeah, I can say a few things.
Anybody wants
Sure,
to?
I'll take a stab at it. We've certainly seen people applying their methodologies and their expertise in different ways, seeing an opportunity and also seeing the potential to provide a service, as we were talking earlier, to the community, be it local, regional, or national, or beyond. And so, they're using their research skill sets and expertise and applying it to the specific circumstances as it relates to the challenges associated with COVID-19. So, financial sustainability, how marketing, how do you transform or pivot the operations of your business and survive through the epidemic? And also, doing the data analytics on it. So depending on what your area of research is, it's differentially impacted, of course, but there's also been tremendous incentives to do so. So various funding agencies, federal government, as well as provincial, and even some organizational foundation type research have invested in that as well and put on specific competitions for schools and researchers who wish to address COVID-19 related issues as a means of trying to maintain the economy, bolster the economy as best one can, and keep people in the workforce.
Okay, thanks, Brenna, for that. So as a consequence of COVID-19, our research, green school research has somehow become more responsible and relevant to society and also to the community. Okay, I don't know, I have probably another question. It's our observation in China, actually, in the wake of pandemic, more and more students actually are choosing science or AI, technology, and the engineering fields instead of the traditional business education. So this actually is a question for our panelists. What do you think what kind of value business education can bring to the table that pure technical fields cannot offer? What are the uniqueness of business school education? Maybe the question is too broad. Yeah.
I believe they are complementary. So, I mean, it's quite clear that there is a trend towards more interdisciplinary type of things. And therefore, it's not a substitute, it's a complement. And for instance, we are targeting now STEM graduates with specific programs for them. And we are developing double degrees with engineering, artificial intelligence, and business, because it's a little bit a response to what the market is asking, which is a more sophistication on the type of studies.
Yeah. So,
okay. So any other remarks?
To Joseph's point, yeah, I fully agree that these are complements, but also the role of management is crucial in the respect that we are handling uncertainties. We need to really have good tools for managing chaotic situations, situations which are suddenly arising. So here the skills of good management is very crucial, I would say. So management should not be.
I agree.
Okay.
And I had 2 points. One of them is that I don't recognize the statement that there is less interest in business and management. I think we've seen a significant surge in undergraduate interest, and we have 20% more recruits this September. So and that's from across the world. But the other part that is very important for us is interdisciplinary is very important, like Joseph said. But also, I think we need to move our programs to become more flexible, to nudge a bit closer to those different disciplines, so that students can choose their interests during the general management or business management track and program. Because the very vanilla kind of business management program may not be the answer to what we need in the next 10 years.
Okay, thanks, Mark, for that. I see a question from the audience. It says the following. Repeat the question. What we see right now is more of a copying traditional tools for classroom to online context. That is partly why students and teachers are complaining about the situation. How do you see the nature of education in the post-COVID period, and how the education itself could be applied better in different contexts like online platform? I guess we have discussed this before in different ways, but you guys have anything you want to add going forward? How far down the online teaching will be carried on, and how in the future business education will be different from now? So any thoughts, any remarks?
Yeah,
I'm happy to say.
Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
Okay. So I'm happy to say, I don't think at good business schools, anything much is going to change. At the lower end of the distribution, online is already popular, and you don't get the marquee value of a high quality business education from a purely online experience. And you don't get the network, you don't get the signaling value, and you don't learn probably as much, certainly from your fellow classmates. So my view is that very little is going to change. Now, not everything is done in the classroom in traditional ways, especially for executive MBAs, but I think the post-COVID experience is going to be very close to what it was with the vaccine.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Brenda, you want to say something?
Yeah, if I can just add to that, I think what we're going to do is make some informed decisions. I mean, what we've learned is that some things actually work quite well in an online environment. So deliver some of the content in an online format where students can go at their own pace or access it whenever is convenient for them, and juggling the other things in their lives. And then investing the classroom time that you have and the schedule time in ways that can really help to apply that knowledge, mobilize it in different ways, and that benefits truly from that engaged, interactive team type approach. So I think it affords us more flexibility, and in so doing, we can be very, very thoughtful to ensure that we elevate quality and take advantage of what each has to offer.
It also gives us,
Thanks, Brenda, for that.
gives us more
More
visibility on our decision set. Actually, but we've very often discussed online as being a strategic dimension of the school, whether we should go over there and deploy more online programs. And the fact that we're living this experience live right now allows us to sort through what is good and not so good, and make probably better and clear decisions on our online strategies in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Perhaps in the beginning, it was much more copying traditional tools, but I don't think that now professors are doing that. I think that after some weeks, professors learn how to explore more the online education. Now they are using Kahoot, they are using Mentimeters, they are using other issues and other platforms, and I think that's going to be difficult to return to the old traditional models. I'm sure that after learning these new methodologies, they are not going to change. They are going to use it, perhaps in blended courses or something like that. But I think that's going to stay.
I think there's one,
Thanks,
there's one signal that I would like to add, which is that the learning innovation team at IE has never been so busy as in the last 6 months, and they will continue to be busy for the next 18 months. And that is to do with tools and everything else. So it will change. The content is changing.
Okay, so how big is your team? Your online team, how big is that?
Well, it's a big team. It's we have at least 30 people working on our innovation piece. So.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I did see questions are coming, but unfortunately, we're running out of time. So before I end this, I'd like to extend a lot of thanks to our panelists for making time for today's discussion. I also want to thank our audience for joining us. So have a wonderful weekend and stay healthy. Hopefully you can see each other in person very soon.